Ladies and gentlemen, this is some kind of thing we're doing. I'm setting up a new recording space, if you didn't see the community note. So currently, we're just trying to, well, I'm trying to put out content for everyone. So everybody can keep hearing my beautiful voice and my lovely opinions.
And he has no help whatsoever in putting out that content. It is just Braden all by himself with absolutely no help. And that's how it works.
I don't know how you even got into this conversation. I don't even know why you're here.
I'm just sneaky like that.
So this is Josh. He is the man behind the videos. He sprinkles his magic fairy dust and makes them look good. Josh, if you would, yeah. A little background on you.
That's editing in a nutshell. Is I just have a bag of fairy dust and I just sprinkle it over my keyboard, and I put out beautifully edited videos every single time and collect lots and lots of money doing it.
I pay him lots and lots of money. It's a lot of money that I give him. Plenty of money. So much.
I'll never have to work another day in my life.
But don't worry, I'll work him to the bone, everybody. Don't worry.
And he does. Every chance he gets. It's great,
Don't see.
Otherwise, I just don't have a sense of purpose, and I don't know what I'm doing with my life.
If I'm not killing myself over these videos, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I am like exactly a Pokemon without a master. I am just listless in my day-to-day life.
Just waiting for someone to tell me to use Thunderbolt.
Okay, so what I thought everybody would want to hear is us just talk about a couple of topics that came up. So a couple of things we're going to talk about today. There were some leaks, Josh. Some leaks.
Who's leaking?
This company.
Who did it?
This company named Microsoft.
Microsoft? I've never heard of them.
It's a little Chinese company.
Do they do anything? Do they do anything important?
They make Xbox. The Xbox. Xbox. Sorry, I'm so bad. Yeah.
Xbox. Yeah. Oh, that's the little rinky-dink game console.
Yes, they are the company that in their leaks, so you know how the Xbox Series X is a little tall tower box in it?
Yes.
They wanted to make it look round like a cylinder and definitely not a trash can.
So
yes.
All the Alexa speakers, that's what we're going for now?
That's one of the leaks that came out. So we're getting a very in-depth look at what Microsoft has been doing in the background and everything. And
I love how I'm not going to be able to tell which device is good for ordering, cheese puffs and which device is good for playing games on.
So there was a code named Brooklyn, Brooklin. Leaked data indicates that there's possible hardware refresh will include more internal storage, faster Wi-Fi, reduced power, and a more immersive controller, which I would expect they want to put the haptic feedback in there like Sony does maybe in their stuff where it vibrates and does all these different things. But if you go down...
Yeah, like a jet engine feels like a jet engine in your hands.
If you go down to that Kotaku article, the point is Xbox Series X might go all digital in 2024. They made it look like a little trash can. The new Xbox that they may put out. That's one of the funnier ones I've seen. I don't know why they would do this, but apparently this also comes as in some of the leaks that a lot of their players use the Xbox Series S and not an X. The Xbox Series S is a much smaller version of it. Apparently, 75% of Xbox Series owners own the S and not the Series X unit. So
so you're telling me that this massive, several $1 million company or $1 billion company made like two versions of a console and one was cheaper, and they're surprised that 3/4 of their users bought the cheaper version?
I mean, not everybody can be rich like me, so you gotta
right. You can buy the new iPhone 15 Pro Plus, maximum, but not everybody can. Some of us have to buy the SE because we broke.
Yeah, but one of the things that apparently some people were positing, this wasn't in any of the emails that I saw. So these were a bunch of emails that were spread from, like Phil Spencer would send them to parts of the team and teams would talk to each other. And these are the emails we found. And these were like evidence and discovery within the FTC trial that they had. A lot of people are saying that this is actually hurting the Xbox ecosystem a little bit because for some developers to make the game optimized for the X and the Series S, that those are kind of different consoles that do, like, the Series S is the little less powerful, a lot more affordable game, playing console, and the X is the much more expensive, better playing version of it, more storage. I think it also has stuff like that. But yeah, it just, I don't know exactly. Like, there's a lot of things in here that just show Xbox is a little stuck at the moment. Not just to mention that, but they also had, I'm trying to find this email.
This also feels very behind the times. Like, PlayStation has been doing this for a while. They've had haptic feedback in their controllers since launch, and they've had the business model of, like, they'll put out the PS4 and then it's the PS4 Pro. And so, like, it's not like game makers haven't figured out how to optimize for a better console.
I think wanted to, how Samsung is making, like, oh, we got a flip phone for you. We have the standard Android. We have our Android Note, the Samsung Note with the bigger phone.
Absolutely.
It just seems like I never, God, on Twitter, I come across like a Sony fanboy because Sony just makes the games I want to play. And Microsoft just doesn't, I don't know the decisions they make a lot of the time regarding Xbox. And I don't know why they make them sometimes, because Sony is just putting out game after game after game that are typically super good. And Xbox doesn't put out anything except Starfield to this point, which has been 2 years. And roughly 2 years, something like that. And I think that's one of the emails they talk about in here is they had a painful, series where they didn't have anything coming out for the Xbox that was only for their fans, sort of thing.
I think Xbox and Microsoft as a whole is starting to feel like they are out of touch, or at least, from a gaming perspective, they feel a little out of touch. And I think Phil Spencer actually kind of referenced that in this article. He's like, AAA publishers were slow to react to, the disruption of digital storefronts, because of Steam and all that. Microsoft and Sony, for that matter, for the last several years have depended on GameStop as, like, the exclusive outlet for games. Now, that's forever ago, before, everything became, a digital download. But they've had this edge because everything was brick and mortar, and you couldn't get your stuff in brick and mortar stores unless you were Microsoft, Sony, or Nintendo. But now, thank you, the internet, anybody can play, anybody can put their game on Steam, and it ends up being a decent game. And so people are able to do it with smaller teams, fewer resources. Maybe it doesn't always have, the best graphics or whatever, but people love these games.
Exactly. And so one of the things this kind of leads into is Microsoft buying up things like Activision and things like that. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people have been positing that, Starfield comes out, whether you think it's good or bad, whatever. We'll get to that later. But they are trying to, I think some people put it like, brute force their way to the top of the industry, whereas Sony is, like, doing a really good job of putting out game after game after game. Their stuff goes off typically without a hitch. I haven't really heard any big things, except we're all looking at Microsoft right now. Nintendo has figured out the formula: get really good exclusives for your console, put out a reasonably affordable console that everybody can get, and eventually you're going to see your sales go up. But Microsoft has no exclusives except for Starfield, finally, a game that is okay, in my opinion. But finally they have something to sell the console, but it's only one game. But on PS5 you have several of these games. And so this led into one of the emails talked about if Xbox was looking at buying and putting some of these games on the Game Pass to make sure they had plenty of games coming in.
I saw that.
And so they had price tags that they thought they would have to pay to put some games onto the Game Pass. And so for EA's Jedi Survivor, Jedi Fallen Order 2 specifically, they expected EA to possibly demand $300 million to put that on the Game Pass.
Yeah, that was the top of the list as far as, like, how expensive. The rest were, like, there's actually a pretty good list of games that they're planning on putting on the Game Pass because of this leak or from this leak. You've got Suicide Squad for $250 million. The next Assassin's Creed is gonna, they expect to pay $100 million for that. And then everyone else is like $50 million or less, down to like $5 million for some of these.
Except GTA 5, they thought they were going to ask for 12 to 15 million a month to have their game on the Game Pass.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the math adds up for all of this. I did some calculations earlier, and if you just take like the top 3 games, Jedi, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, Suicide Squad, Assassin's Creed, there's what, like 850 million just in those 3 games. And if you're charging $9 or $10 a month, you need 7 million gamers per year to subscribe for an entire year and I'm sure there's 7 million Xbox owners out there, sure, but that's just for those 3 games, and that doesn't count Baldur's Gate 3, that doesn't count Just Dance or Red Dead Redemption 2 at 5 million per month for that matter, or GTA 5, like or any new games that they want to add to the list later. So whatever that price is, it's just going to balloon over the course of time. And so you're only going to have this, you're going to hit a ceiling with the number of subscribers. You don't think you will, but neither did Netflix, and they lost this year they hit a month where they lost subscribers. So like this idea that you can always find new customers somewhere else is not feasible.
It also ties into one of the other emails they had when you brought up how AAA publishers didn't adapt to digital storefronts. That email goes a little bit deeper to talk about how, so like for the Game Pass to work, games take a while to make. Like say a game like Fallout New Vegas only took about 2 years to make. Games nowadays, I think Starfield took like 8 years to make. And now think about how, say, YouTube works. Shorts, everyone wants content nearly daily. They need things quite quickly, and they want it in their face very quickly, and constantly refreshing and getting new things in there. And AAA publishers, they took this route to where instead they are doing bigger games at larger budgets to survive in Xbox's view at this point. And they're not creating any new IPs because they're having to focus so much on these really big projects. Like you've seen a rise of AAA publishers. This is from one of the emails. You've seen a rise of AAA publishers using rented IP to try to offset their risks. So Star Wars with EA, they'll let people use the Star Wars name. Spider-Man will, go over to Sony will let people use Spider-Man. Avatar will lend their name and let Ubisoft make a game out of it. The same dynamic has obviously played out in Hollywood as well, with Netflix creating more new IP than any of the movie studios. Specifically, the AAA game publishers, starting from a position of strength driven from physical retail, have failed to create any real platform effect for themselves. They effectively continue to build their scale through aggregated per-game P&Ls, hoping to maximize each new release of their existing IPs. So they're just kind of really focused on gigantic releases, and eventually the bubble is kind of going to burst on them at some point.
And it works just fine if you can make back the money that you're spending making the game. That's the, you mentioned Hollywood. That's exactly how it works in Hollywood. If you can make back the money that you spent making the movie and promoting the movie, you have a profitable film. Games are not at all different. So, if you... this all feels like just shifting around deck chairs on the Titanic. Will it sink anytime soon? I don't know. Maybe. But as a gamer, I got to tell you, it's more of a hassle than anything else. Except for when I find that I can get Cyberpunk 2077 for $30 instead of the full $50 now because of my PlayStation Plus subscription. I do like that. So it's a weird mixed bag.
Yeah. So I think in this, let me see where else in this email. In the new world where AAA publisher don't have real distribution leverage with customers, they don't have production efficiencies, and their new IP hit rate is not disproportionately higher than the industry average. We see the top franchises today were mostly not created by AAA game publishers. Games like Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft, Candy Crush, Clash Royale, Dota 2, etc., where all were created by independent studios with full access to distribution. Overall, this, in my opinion, is a good thing for the industry, but does put AAA publishers in a precarious spot moving forward. AAA publishers are milking their top franchises but struggling to refill their portfolio of hit franchises. Most AAA publishers are hiding the success of franchises, writing the success of franchises created 10 plus years ago. And I kind of have to agree. I mean,
Yeah.
you're getting to the point where eventually you're going to have to focus on, like, I remember back in, I don't know how much you gamed back in like the 2010s and a little bit before, but
I played my share of Mario Kart.
yeah. So like
For sure.
games used to have kind of a tier system where you would have these B mid-budget games and you would have your big games, like your Halos back then. And these B games would sometimes, if you had a hit on your hands, wow, we just do you know the production house Blumhouse? They make those horror movies and stuff like that.
No, I don't actually.
Okay.
Tell me about them.
So Blumhouse will make a movie for $1 million to $2 million. They'll make like a, kind of a crappy horror movie and they'll sell it. If that hits big on a very low investment of $1 million to $2 million, then you've really hit something. Then you can make another movie for another $1 to $2 million. But if Blumhouse starts putting out $200 million to $300 million projects, obviously the bar to make your money back and then make more is getting just increasingly higher. And that's, I think, the issue that the bigger publishers are facing right now, and why even Microsoft is buying indie studios to fill some of their portfolio out at this point. Have you ever heard of the Saints Row franchise?
Yes.
Yes.
I am familiar with Saints Row.
So the first Saints Row game came back a long time ago, and it released like a really big series kind of afterwards for Volition and Deep Silver, the studio that made it. So they made a new reboot of that franchise, and it was just called Saints Row. Everybody hated it. It was really bad. It's a super bad game, this reboot. And it ended up killing Volition, like the studio that made it. They're gone now. Embracer Group, I wouldn't call them the publisher. They're just a capital group that owns quite a few studios that you would, not really know about.
Right.
But they gave them $100 million to make this game, and it was a total flop. No one liked the game. Now picture, I tell Saints Row, the Saints Row team, hey, let's scale down the game, put out a good game, make it very deep. We're giving you about a $20 million budget tops. We don't need something crazy. It doesn't need to be ambitious. It doesn't need to be any of this. How about instead we scale it down? We'll try it out. Give us your ideas. We'll try it out. And on a $20 million investment, that's still a good amount of money. But does that kill a studio? Probably not. I wouldn't think so. And I think that's what some of the bigger publishers are missing at this point, is with smaller investments, if you get a hit, you could see a gigantic return on investment. And then now we have a new franchise. But a lot of the publishers, I'm not sure what they're seeing. And I have to agree with Phil, they are not as important. I think Phil Spencer concluded the role of a AAA publisher has changed and become less important in today's gaming industry because they're not... For me, the metaphor is like a successful farmer goes out and he's cultivating this field that probably isn't going to return much. But if you cultivate it enough over time, that investment can start to return back to you. So if I give 10 smaller studios a couple million apiece from them, let's say that $100 million they gave one studio, I split it between 10 studios, let them come up with what they're going to come up with, bring back to me. And if I get even one hit franchise back from that, that's probably going to start making my money back immediately. And that's something we're really missing today is like those B level games that are not crazy ambitious, or they're not using all the buzzwords. They're not Red Dead Redemption 2. They're just something a little smaller that everybody can enjoy. Still sell them for 60
So
bucks.
you're kind of pushing for or if I get this right, you're looking for, let's big company like Microsoft or Sony for this matter, they just kind of, instead of making huge games like Starfield or God of War, and hope that, whatever IP that they're working on is gonna really catch on, let's just make a bunch of smaller games and hope that one of them is a hit. If we put out, 9 or 10 small investments and one of them is a hit, then it can cover the cost of 9 flops. Is that kind of what you're going for here?
Well, also in the future, if let's say I made Baldur's Mate, you're going to be friends with Baldur's, and it comes back and you only gave me about a $5 million budget to make this game. Yes, that game is going to sell really well at 60 bucks a pop, but also in the future, now we can invest more money into it and we can promise players more. But so I think this also goes into if so like the next Mass Effect game, whenever the hell that comes out, that's going to be a game with like a at least $200 million budget probably, and I think it's probably going to be more. But so like if I start out, like our first new IP is going to have $100 million injected into it, or $200 million injected into it, how much bigger do we get in the next game? Like, do I now have to invest $500 million in the next game to beat the expectation of what was just come before it, And
that
so
does seem to be the trend, though, is that, I made one hit game, it blew up for reasons unknown, and now I have to try to capture lightning in a bottle the second time. But now, because there's a lot of people who believe in the game since they saw the first one, I can get more money for it.
For
that's
sure.
That's just how it works right now.
Yeah, but my point is, like, so now you come back to me, you want to make a sequel of Baldur's Mate. You want to make a sequel of this game. Okay, cool. How about I give you, God, what's in the budget? Like 350, 400 million? No, because see, we had these ideas and we did all this stuff. We want to improve on those systems. We want to add more. How about 600 million? You're inflating your budgets to such an extent that now you're just, God, like, where do we even find this money? What do we do? Because then to offset the investment you just made in Baldur's Mate 2, now you're going to have to go find a live service game that you either made or bought from another company. Like Microsoft bought Call of Duty. That's going to rake in millions of dollars. I mean, they never seem to stop. And so now you're having to offset that investment. Well, now the next game's going to need a bigger investment. How do we offset that with more money? And Microsoft, thankfully, is a big enough company where they can offset their investments quite a bit with other businesses outside of gaming. But like, if you're a publisher like Ubisoft, where do you get the money to do this? Because all you're relying on then is like marketing to hyperinflate everyone's expectations. That way you can, like, say we put 200 million here for Baldur's Mate 1, 200 million again for Baldur's Mate 2. We're going to have to trick people into thinking there's more in here now, which I'm kind of fine with. Like, the games don't need to get too big, in my opinion. But if instead we said, okay, we're going to start cultivating, and I hope that's what Microsoft is doing. I hope Microsoft is saying, let's start cultivating these smaller studios. They're not going to need much money. We get a hit out of one of these guys. We get a huge return on investment. Then we can, over time, build up how much we invest in those games. And after a while, we're going to see more money back. We've got a new franchise, and then we start the whole process over again. It's like when a major sports team goes to tons of high schools to scout out what is happening, get somebody on the cheap, that sort of feeling,
But here's the question I've got. Is it purely budget, or is there a level of artistic freedom that either is or isn't helping the development of these games? Like, I think Sony with their big titles like, God of War is like, there are some standards that your developers have to meet for it to be a big, title for Sony to even bother with, here's the money. Like, are we giving smaller budgets and then saying, hey, go do whatever you want? Or are we giving, smaller budgets and saying, here's a little bit of money and you're going to have to do it, exactly by these terms. Is that what Microsoft is missing right now with their big budget games? Or because how much of Microsoft's influence went into Starfield's development? That's that's a question that I want to have answered.
Some of the stuff I've read, so there were some things like public documents made about the FTC trial and how Sony is kind of the company they portray Microsoft to be, who is very hyper aggressive in pushing their competition out and things like that. I think, and I'll have to look into it more, Microsoft is very hands off with a lot of their stuff. And so they kind of let the developer kind of do whatever they're going to do. And that's what happened with Redfall, which it turned out really bad, and the studio just completely screwed it all up. But then Sony, if Sony were to give you like, hey, we want you to make some kind of game based on our property, Spider-Man, we want you to make a Spider-Man game.
Right.
It needs to have X, Y, Z. We are giving you this amount of time. You have this amount of money. Do not go over it. It needs to have these things in it. Do it. And we are going to be checking it every, couple of months or whatever. We're going to need to make sure that this is the game that we wanted. And I think Sony is a lot more in-depth on what they want out of the game. And if the game is going bad, they are probably going to intervene and try to get them out of the hole they dug themselves, So they're
if that's the way that Sony's doing it, then I could I
Yeah.
played Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man. Maybe Microsoft should be putting their hand on the wheel for games like Starfield.
I've heard a few people come out and start saying that as well, like journalists and things like that start saying that maybe Microsoft needs to start putting a little bit more.
Because otherwise they can't stand there and be surprised that a game doesn't play as well as they expected.
Sure. And, game devs, it's like you look at a big meal and your eyes are bigger than your stomach sort of thing. And, it just doesn't work out. And so, just from all the leaks, had a great combo right there. But AAA publishers are not what they used to be, and I have to agree with Phil on that. One of the things
think that there's do we think
ahead.
that there's any hope for AAA game? Like, is there a chance for like a second golden age for AAA gaming? Can they get their stuff together? What do you think that that's possible?
If you don't start scaling down the games, no, because this is a bit off topic, but like the last thing I'll say on this is like game devs today. I don't want to be too insulting, but I want to insult a little bit.
Do it. Insult.
So Cyberpunk 2077. I told my brother, hey, this is what I think the CD Projekt Red devs actually thought. They thought, dude, we made The Witcher 3. We are gods. We are amazing at this. How about this? Let me tell you about this shit. Okay. We're going to make a game where you can like shoot people. You go on deep, interesting quests. They're gonna affect one another. All of our quests are gonna affect one another. They're all gonna affect the ending. All of this stuff. That's what we're gonna do. It's gonna be amazing. But also,
it's immersive. It's immersive. Right. It puts you in. You are living as a cyberpunk.
But then, hold on. Then, if you want to play the game as a passive, like no violence, we're gonna let you do that too. We're gonna give you plenty of stuff to do that too. Also, we're going to let you hook up with random people at the bar. We're going to have tons of combos with them. You're going to have like awesome conversations with them, and you're going to get to know them. Shoot, we made The Witcher 3. We can do whatever we want. We're going to let all of these weird side characters that have nothing to do with the main story, nothing to do with the side quests, nothing to do with anything. We're going to give them depth because that's how good we are.
Because we really want you to live your life in Cyberpunk 2077.
Life simulators.
It is not a game. It is your you go and work and you do your real life stuff and you come home and every waking hour is spent in this game because that's where you feel the most real.
That is what I think a lot of devs think they can do now. Their eyes are way too big for their stomachs, and they cannot do half the stuff they want to do in these games, which we just saw with Starfield. They had to rely on what I would assume are tons of automated systems to fill most of the game, to do like facial animations, to do a lot of stuff. They had to rely on things that like if I told you, hey, I'm going to handcraft 50 planets by hand, I'm going to place a ton of stuff around the planet, or I can automate the whole process for you. Well, we don't have time. Obviously, the 50 handcrafted planets are going to be better. They're going to have their own quests. They're going to have their own characters. They're going to be deep. We don't have time for that. So we're going to automate everything. And that's the issue with like these ballooning budgets is.
But you said it yourself. They spent 8 years making this game.
Yep.
I don't know that that's an excuse anymore. Like, you didn't have time. What did you spend all your time on to come out with all these very generic, identical carbon copy planets?
Honestly, at this point, I think most devs are thinking they can do it, and they're honestly saying, like, we are going to do this. Awesome. And so you're going to increase our expectations, but then they find out, oh my God, the deadline's coming up. We're going to need to try something else. And then slowly but surely, creativity is like just chipped away each little bit. How much creativity are you willing to sacrifice to get the game out? And that's the thing we're coming up on. There's tons more you could focus on about how I think game design has changed today, but that'll have to be for a oh man. But yeah, that's where I think games are at this point. Devs need to shrink their eyes a bit, scale down their games, and stop overhyping them is pretty much the point. But one of the things, to get back to Microsoft, because you distracted me, you so naughty distracted me.
I'm so very sorry. Just hear the regret and sorriness that's in my voice.
So
oops,
you're just interrupting me now. You're just.
Am I doing that?
Are you
just
done?
Interrupting you?
Okay. All right. No,
am I?
Fine.
Am I
it's
done?
Fine, dude. It's fine. I mean, you're gonna have to edit it. I don't.
You ask a question. Do you want me to answer? Because I can. I can answer it.
This is not cute anymore. Shut up.
I'm always cute.
So, one of the things that I vehemently disagree with Phil on, though, I do not like. Did you read in the article here and the emails that they want to buy Nintendo, and they've made offers previously to buy Nintendo?
It's cute that they think Nintendo will ever sell to Microsoft. That's what I think. I think it's cute. It's adorable.
Like,
nice try.
I would have to look at Nintendo and the size of them. They're not as big as a Microsoft, maybe, but Microsoft has their tendrils in tons of stuff. Would they be as big as a Sony? No, because Sony also has, like, they have music business, they have films, they have all this stuff. Nintendo is like the miniature version of these two titans, and they're just sitting there pumping out good games. They pump out these little cute consoles that don't run as well, but like I can take it.
Right, but it would be a mistake to think of Nintendo as this small little company. Like they've been around for as long as anybody. They've done some really amazing work in the game space. Anybody who looked at Tears of the Kingdom that just came out, game developers, I saw so many articles about the game developers who were like crying about how good Tears of the Kingdom is and why they can't do the same level of excellence. Like, Nintendo is not nothing. They just play a different game than Sony or Microsoft ever wants to play. And I don't think they're gonna give up their freedom to go play in Microsoft's backyard and do things the way that Microsoft wants to do it, because everything's worked for Nintendo up to this point, except for the Wii U.
Because I remember Phil Spencer says something like, the gaming industry would be better if Microsoft owned Nintendo. And I just wholeheartedly disagree with that.
By whose standard? By what standard does any of us get better? Like, I love Nintendo being Nintendo and doing their own thing. I don't need a Nintendo Game Pass. Leave that alone.
Don't get me wrong. Like, God, I see Xbox fanboys on Twitter like, yes, it would be so much better. Microsoft should just own everything. And I'm like,
no.
Oh my God.
No. God, gross.
We are quickly becoming anarcho-capitalists very quickly.
Like, I don't even like using Word, okay? I think Word is disgusting. Like, okay, look, people use Word and it's it works for what they do, but like, I don't even like touch. I think it's an ugly piece of software. Okay. We could do better. I don't want them to own Nintendo.
Okay, I found one of the emails. It's not from Phil to Chris Capicella and Nakeshi Namuto. So this is from Phil. Takeshi, I totally agree that Nintendo is the prime asset for us in gaming in today, and today gaming. For gaming in today, that's written weird. Gaming is our most likely path to consumer relevance. I've had numerous conversations with the LT of Nintendo about tighter collaboration and feel like if any US company would have a chance with Nintendo, we are probably in the best position. The unfortunate, or fortunate for Nintendo situation, is that Nintendo is sitting on a big pile of cash. They have a BOD that until recently has not pushed for further increases in market growth or stock appreciation. I say until recently, as our former Microsoft BOD member Value Act has been heavily acquiring shares of Nintendo, and I've kept in touch with Mason Morfitt as he's been acquiring. It's likely he'll be pushing for more from Nintendo stock, which could create opportunities for us. Without that catalyst, I don't see an angle to a near-term mutually agreeable merger of Nintendo and Microsoft, and I don't think a hostile action would be a good move. Wow. Why wouldn't? Come on, dude. So we are playing the long game.
Is this Microsoft saying, hey, you guys have a nice gaming company over there. It'd be a shame if something were to happen to it.
No,
is that what just happened in that email?
Surely not. But I'll assume.
I felt some like thuggish, old Russian mafia vibes there. I don't like that at all.
So apparently, but our BOD has seen the full write-up on Nintendo and Valve, and they are fully supportive on either if an opportunity arises. So Phil is saying here that the people behind him are saying, if you get a chance to buy Nintendo or Steam or Valve, do it. Do not hesitate to buy those two. And okay, the first avenue to hit on would be Microsoft can't even run their own stuff well at this point.
Right.
If you are seeing the forest through the trees, if you're looking at things with no rose-tinted glasses on, Microsoft is doing pretty bad with Xbox right now. They only recently have finally released an exclusive for Xbox. Finally. And even then, it's not as good as it could have been. But at least it's something, But Sony is just pumping games out. Nintendo, pumping games out. And Microsoft is in third place still. I don't think buying Nintendo, because even then, this, like Activision, don't get me wrong, I'm trying to look at, I know for a fact the FTC, Judge Corley talked about how Microsoft is not in a position if they buy Activision, if it goes through, that they are not going to be able to just own the market. They're not just going to be like, well, it's done. There's no point to do anything else if you're another company. Even then, Microsoft was forced through social pressure on this to let Sony have Call of Duty on that platform. So even your investment in this did not get you what you needed, which was an exclusive part of the gaming landscape for only your console, only ours, which is what they needed. So even this investment is not going to do that. Are they, Nintendo games are not on Sony or Xbox. Nintendo is its own thing.
Well, see here's what this feels like to me. Nintendo's, they're doing pretty well. Sony's doing pretty well. Microsoft is, bottom of those three. It seems like Microsoft doesn't want to eat its vegetables. And by that I mean it just doesn't want to make good games. It wants to buy everyone else's games. It wants to buy Call of Duty. It wants to push out Starfield. Great. Fine. But Sony makes a bunch of games. Nintendo makes a bunch of games. Is every game super fun? No. But because Sony is making their games and Nintendo is making their games, there is a muscle memory, there is a learning process. Like Sony understands why their games work and why some of their games don't work. Nintendo, through the long line of Zelda franchise games, they've tried things, and anybody who pays attention to that particular franchise will tell you that, hey, you know, Wind Waker was cool, but it wasn't the best Zelda game out there. And, you know, Skyward Sword was kind of, you know, it was okay. It had to try some stuff, but it was whatever. But all of that stuff became Breath of the Wild, which was an unquestionable success. Nobody says, hey, this one game that you guys put out, you know, it's kind of so, because it launched the Switch. The Switch was cool on its own merits because it's portable and it's, you know, and it can be on your TV, but like it came with a solid game, and not the only game out there, but like if Microsoft did that, if they launched, you know, an Xbox with just a solid game that they had worked hard to make and that they got all the kinks out of, and, you know, worked on their own IP for a few years, nobody would complain. It would work, and it wouldn't need to be. It would be an exclusive by default, but that, you know, that would drive people to buy an Xbox. This is not rocket science.
Well,
but Microsoft wants to do everything but that.
I think
unless I'm wrong here.
Now, well, there's just a lot of ways to look at it. So, if Microsoft bought Nintendo and now Mario is only on Nintendo, Sony is going to be like, crap. Like, I wish we had bought Nintendo. Obviously, if Sony gets a chance to buy Nintendo, they're going to do it. I don't think Microsoft and Sony probably see that, like, oh yeah, we should buy Nintendo. If Nintendo is selling, we're going to buy them. Like, that's obvious. We should buy Nintendo.
But is Nintendo even in a position to be bought by anybody? Like,
I have not seen if Nintendo was going to sell all of their stuff, and is it Miyamoto who's the big famous guy over there? I can't remember, but
sure.
If he came out and said, like, we are selling everything, he would have no one, and they tried to keep it secret, no one would be able to keep it secret. Everyone leaks aplenty. They would never be able to keep this under
so
wraps.
we would know if Nintendo was in a position where they wanted to sell.
Oh, for
but
sure.
Otherwise, it's like if I went to, you know, Elon Musk and I said, hey man, I think that I would benefit greatly if you let me buy Tesla from you. Money aside, you know, my vast amounts of riches from just, you know, my magic dust editing aside, I would be laughed out of the room because Elon's not going to sell Tesla for anything. He loves Tesla. He's not going to sell, you know, SpaceX or Twitter either.
Yeah,
so it's cute that I'm offering to buy it, but whatever.
It could be pride. It could be like, we don't want to, you know, we're still wanting to be in this business. But so, okay, tomorrow Microsoft has bought Nintendo. What did you get? You got a catalog of games that you can now sell in the Game Pass that you can only get on an Xbox now. Okay, now what do? Okay, you already have two consoles that are different. You already have all of these different things. Do you keep the Switch? Do you go into the Switch? Do you try to make an Xbox Switch? You're already splitting your fan base between two consoles. Hell, your fan base is already split between, some of are still on the last gen, I put in quotes, of consoles that you just put out. Not everyone even has an Xbox Series S or X at this point. Now are you going to split them more at this point to put out an Xbox Switch? Are you going to put out exclusive Nintendo games? I assume you're going to have to put out Mario games. Like, I don't know. And Microsoft isn't even showing that they're good at this yet. Like, they're not even showing they're good at, like, show that you can get to the top and then we'll talk, sort of thing, is what I would be saying. I think
if Microsoft were to buy Nintendo, which I think is an absolute absurd thing for them to even ask or, you know, email about, but whatever.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I can understand why they're saying it. Yeah, you do it if you can buy it. Do it.
Yeah, sure. It makes sense for Microsoft. It makes no sense for anyone else. But like, if it worked, and if they made this happen, one, they're having to contend in a Japanese market, and the Japanese marketplace likes their handheld consoles, so they're going to have to make a good handheld console. Now, Nintendo's expertise is going to let them make a good handheld console, but now we're going backwards in terms of what Nintendo has done. Nintendo created a device that is both handheld and TV, and that was their selling point for the Switch. Like that was it. So
I
you'd have to
yeah.
kill the Switch and push your Xbox and push your whatever weird amalgamous, handheld is. And you're going to try to make it with, as high spec as you can in a handheld console. And maybe you put some more Mario games on the Xbox, but like, I don't want that as a gamer, as somebody who likes Nintendo games. I don't want that. I'm never going to ask for that.
And
Keep your
plus
hands
with
off.
like like Nintendo getting out of business and Microsoft having that I mean that shifts a big chunk of the industry in one direction. But then is Microsoft even competent enough to truly make the most of it? And I just don't know if they are at this point.
I agree with that. I don't think they could really.
But the bad thing is, I don't think Microsoft is not like, don't get me wrong, they're a company and they're going to be aggressive where they can be aggressive. But if Sony buys Nintendo, they are going to be hyper aggressive about like pushing Microsoft off the face of the earth. Like they are going to be, don't get me wrong, Microsoft will be like, they'll try, but like Sony is this like, if I don't want to use too graphic a metaphor, but like
Do it.
If you're not
do it.
like if you're not careful, they'll rip your throat out if they get the chance to do it. I really do picture it. If they had a chance to bring down Microsoft and then buy the ashes, I gotta be honest, I think they would try to do it.
Okay, but see, here's because you have to consider that Microsoft is not just a gaming company. That and even if Game Pass and everything Xbox just totally sucks and they are not profitable in that part of the business whatsoever, it's all going to be subsidized by their business enterprise stuff and by every other thing that Microsoft has their hands on. Sony's the same way. Even if Microsoft had such a great advantage, even if Microsoft were to buy Nintendo, okay, in this nightmare scenario that we painted, you're not going to get rid of Sony, because even if the PlayStation is dying out, it's going to be subsidized by every other thing that Sony does. And they're so entrenched. Like, Google did Google Stadia for a little bit. And if they really wanted to, that platform could still be alive and well today. They killed it off because it was like, all right, it's not doing what we expected it to do. But that thing was like a month old and they were like, okay, yeah, it's not doing what we want. So they killed it off. Yeah. These legacy platforms are too entrenched, and they're both, backed by companies that can subsidize these platforms. So, the only thing that an acquisition of Microsoft or an acquisition of Nintendo would change is the fact that we don't get the Switch anymore, and our Mario games are on Game Pass for some weird reason.
It's not like if Microsoft bought Nintendo tomorrow, they're going to be able to change whatever they want. Like you said, it's entrenched.
Right.
The practices, what the fan bases are expecting out of the games, out of the hardware. You can't just change that overnight. You're going to have to change that years on years on years and what people should expect from a Microsoft-owned Nintendo. But more to the point, if Microsoft bought Nintendo, it would be hard to put into words. Like, Microsoft would now have bought out the second biggest market share of the gaming industry, and that would not be good, in my opinion.
I think I'd just have to start playing mobile games from now on. That would be my alternative.
Throw it all into microtransactions, man.
I'm just gonna play Candy Crush from then on. What else do I have? Nothing is gonna be as fun anymore.
It really, I just don't like. I think a Activision acquisition makes sense. It's not going to ruin everything. I don't think it's going to end the world of gaming.
No,
but it's not going to turn into this capitalist wasteland where we can't get anything. But Nintendo, that might be a bit bigger.
My fear is that if Microsoft is trying to look at an acquisition of Nintendo in the same way that they've looked at the acquisition of Activision, like if they just kind of picture those as like just the next acquisition, that's a problem, because they're very this is not a little game studio. Okay, this is a massive part of the industry that like some people play exclusively Nintendo, and that's okay. Like,
And so now you're having to set up almost an entirely new marketing team, an entirely new dev team to do only that market niche that you now own, but now you're having to learn an entirely new niche that I don't even think Xbox has done anything remotely similar to like a Switch or anything like that.
no.
Can you make a faithful Nintendo game? I assume you can keep the devs around, but like, are you going to turn it into a open world live service wasteland? Because Sony, if they bought it, if we got like an open world Mario Ghost of Tsushima clone, I wouldn't be surprised. But I bet you it'd be pretty good.
You know,
but
actually, I'd play that. I'd play that for hours. That actually sounds like a lot of fun. Can you imagine Mario with a katana and just going to town?
It would be so different. But I think the thing about, I don't know, it's just, I do not buy Nintendo. You cannot. It's too big. It's too big. They cannot have it.
It only makes sense for Microsoft. It makes no sense for
of course
else.
It makes it if I could buy Nintendo tomorrow, doing it. Like, I don't care what the consequences are. I don't care. My business is growing. That's
sure.
All you're
I would also love to buy Nintendo tomorrow, but
of course,
as an individual, that makes no sense. And really, honestly, I don't think anybody has the wherewithal to really run Nintendo the way Nintendo should be run. They're doing fine. They do a bunch of wacky stuff with their consoles, like the motion controls and the Wii controller. That was weird, but it worked, and they built on it.
Japan is very gimmicky. Like, they're kind of gimmicky. Yeah.
But that's fun. I remember when the DS came out, like the original DS, and I was psyched that there was a touchscreen built into it. Now it's like, if you say touchscreen on anything, it's like, oh, isn't that supposed to be there? Like,
yeah, that's a standard feature now.
Yeah. But then it was like no one else was doing that, and especially nothing with handheld. PlayStation or Sony dropped with their PlayStation Portable, and then the PlayStation Vita, and then kind of like decided that it just wasn't worth their time. And even now, they're not doing anything like truly handheld. But Nintendo's always done weird and wacky things, and sometimes they work, and sometimes you get that weird tablet with the Wii U, and everybody's like, what do I even? What do I need with this? Mm-hmm. But like, that's the fun of Nintendo, is that they try a bunch of stuff with their games. They try a bunch of stuff with their hardware. Sony is not going to do Nintendo-esque stuff. They like bigger and better games, and that's great. Microsoft wants bigger and better games. That's great. I'm happy with the two of them fighting it out. But Nintendo is the weird cousin that likes to just take apart the old transistor radio and see if he can put it back together, and he finds new things to do, and that makes me happy.
They like to make crappy Pokemon games nowadays. So
yeah, they make crappy Pokemon games, but they'll at least learn something from it.
Nintendo, just upgrade your console. Just make like a regular console and just give us a good, like, stop making glitchy Pokemon games. It's so bad. The last thing I wanted to hit on, because we're coming up on an hour now, to tie all that together is like, Microsoft they're just not good enough at this yet. They're not good enough to compete right now. What I would expect is, hey guys, okay, we're going to have to reset. We're not doing anything for the rest of this console generation. Like, as long as it's lasting, maybe it's coming to an end. I don't know. But if it is coming to an end, listen, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put out one console. It's going to be nice and affordable, as much technology as we can put in it. Next, what we're going to do is put out exclusive games. That's what we're doing. We are going to pump out as much stuff for our fans as we possibly can. They need to be good games to great games. That's what we're going to focus on. Even if not
all of them work, it's okay if we put out a game here or there that just doesn't work.
And even then, Phil Spencer thinks that, I can't remember when this email came out, if the timeline is like Phil Spencer is talking about current Xbox where Starfield is just released. I don't think it is, But in an email, he described the Xbox Series X and S lines as a better product than what Sony has, not just on hardware, but equally important on the software platform and services. He continued, "We have the ingredients of a winning plan. Today was a good day for us." Maybe.
Sure.
Maybe you do. And I think, and I kind of agree, you do have the ingredients of a winning plan, but you never seem to be able to put it together. Why is that? Why can you never, ever put everything together? For some reason, Microsoft cannot just like do the bare minimum, which is just like for a console generation, if it goes for 2 years, put out like 10 exclusive games, just like Sony does, and then you can move forward from there. Stop splitting your fan base between 2 different consoles. You just copy Sony for a little bit. Just copy what Sony does for a little bit. Get yourselves back on track, get some momentum, and then you can start exploring a little bit.
Right,
it's
because
just like
Sony, when they drop a console, they drop one console, and they might drop a better console, a year or 2 later. Like, there's already rumors about the PS5 Pro. Great, and
then
some
the
of
Nintendo
us,
Switch too, as well. Yeah.
Right. But see, neither of those companies dropped 2 consoles at the same time. And that's the big,
And
Microsoft,
the Series
if you
S
wanted
did come
to do
out later. The Series S did come out later after the
how much later? Are we talking 5 years?
It came. I think it was a good enough amount of time where they're like, here, we'll offer a lower priced alternative, sort of thing. But it came out later.
That makes less sense, because now you're undercutting the flagship console. Like, if I was looking at a Series X and I'm full disclosure, not an Xbox guy. If anybody noticed.
So you're saying you're a Sony pony? Is that what you're saying?
I just like God of War. Okay, I like God of War. I like Horizon Zero Dawn. Like,
I swear we're not Sony fanboy. This is not a Sony fanboy podcast, but like
really,
Microsoft just kind of.
I'm a Nintendo fanboy that will play Sony games. That's that's how I identify as a gamer. But even the Series S and the Series X, they seem look, okay, here my point, my real point here is, like, I don't think that either console between Sony and Microsoft, I don't think either console has an overall edge. I think the technology, it's out there. We have SSD, we have haptic feedback, we have the same general components in different shaped boxes. But then it's what's
surrounding that is actually selling it. It's all the stuff surrounding that product.
Well, you're referring to the software. You're talking about the games, and you're talking about the subscriptions and yes. I completely agree with that. If you're not going to outsell based on your hardware, then your software and your services have to be different. And the Game Pass is not exciting enough for me to say I want an Xbox, and Starfield is not exciting enough for me to say I want an Xbox.
Like, I think the marketing plan is for Sony. We are going to put out one console. You can have a disc drive or no disc drive. We don't care. Yeah. We're going to put out our formulaic games, which I'm not using that as an insult. Their formula is really good. But they put out those games. Most of them come out. If they put out 10 games, I'm willing to bet my money on 8 of them at least being just damn. Just like, oh, good. And then maybe 3 of them, or 2 of them, sorry, if I can do math. But like 2 of them are going to be like, oh God, that was bad. Like, there have been those games from Sony. But then on the Xbox side,
oh sure,
they're just a PC that we get games on sometimes that you can get on other platforms, but they're on here if you want to. We will update our software every so often. Oh, did you see we changed the menu? There's nothing...
Which we can all agree, everybody can agree that a menu change is the most critical part of any console. Right.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Never mind. I'm a Microsoft fan now. But I don't know what Xbox offers. Like, if you want to do something different, fine. But am I just buying a PC, but a PC that I can't just like rip apart its software and do weird stuff with it.
We might just need to have a conversation with somebody who likes the Xbox and just see like what can you tell me that works for you that doesn't work if you had a PlayStation.
Well, as we saw from the FTC trial, those public documents, the judge said Microsoft is in third. Their market share is behind Nintendo and Sony. What it is right now, who knows? And even then, the Game Pass might not be as great profit-wise as it looks, because we don't know the internal numbers, but like if Sony had Starfield as an exclusive, that game is selling for $70 a pop for the next gen version. You're going to play it, and that is $70 a pop for everything. Sony is going to get that money. The Game Pass, though, currently, what is it? Game Pass prices currently.
It's Game Pass is the minimum is $9.99 and then like the premium is $14.99.
So part of your customer base, or I would assume a majority of your customer base, is buying Starfield for $10 or $25 at most. I don't know if that's the avenue. I would have to see, because eventually after Starfield, Microsoft is going to post their quarterly earnings stuff, and people are going to be looking at it because it's becoming a discussion about, is the Game Pass all it's cracked up to be? Like, oh my God, the Game Pass is just doing numbers for Microsoft. Sure, it's a great deal to get all of these games, but is it the thing that's like, oh yeah, we make way more money than Sony because of the Game Pass? And I don't know. And I think I saw an article at some point saying they're going to raise the prices on the Game Pass. So I think they're starting to see that, possibly.
I also wonder from an industry standpoint, like you know, if you go shopping at Walmart, the prices are cheaper, but that's, you know, partly because Walmart will strong arm their suppliers into giving them lower prices, right? So does this happen for Microsoft? Are they willing to pay $250 million for the next Star Wars Jedi Survivor, but maybe the game after that they're only willing to pay $150 million?
Also, add on to the fact: are you willing to pay $250 million for a game that is already on Sony's platform as well? Are you willing to go ahead and, because Sony paid that too,
right?
But you're now splitting like.
So it doesn't make sense for Microsoft to continue to pay out just huge sums of money. Like the natural progression is they're going to realize, hey, we don't value your game that much. Yeah.
Get exclusive games. That's all. Just put out more exclusives. Then you don't have to worry about buying other games, because the rush to buy these games is because you can't put any exclusives out. You can't put anything out for some reason. Scalebound, that sick dragon game, gone. Like Redfall, you apparently when they come out, you can't even make them work right. What is wrong with you? Like, yeah, that's the main point. Microsoft is just kind of, they're kind of shit at this. They're just not really good at this thing. And
here's the thing too. I want them to be good. I'm never going to buy an Xbox. I don't have any need to buy an Xbox, but I want them to be good, because I don't want Sony and Nintendo to be the only companies innovating in this space. I want Microsoft to do some fun things that makes Sony. We're going to need to do a whole another
hour shitting on Sony and PlayStation just to counteract all of the.
I won't do it. I refuse. I love Sony. Anyway, I'm not even because I think Sony is superior. I bought my buddy's used PS4 5 years ago and decided that yes, I will upgrade to a PS5, and I just have no need for an Xbox. But like, I want Microsoft to do good, because if the game publishers compete, if the consoles compete, we win.
Yeah,
that's it.
You got to have the balance, and
yeah.
If you're
competition,
only buying from Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo Limited, then it's not going to go as well.
Yeah, no. Yeah. A merger between any of those, three or all of those three just sucks for the rest of us.
And then Microsoft,
I want competition.
Yeah,
let's go.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much all I care about in these leaks right now, unless you had something else you wanted to, at this point, talk about.
No, I still kind of, I look at the list of games that they want to put on Game Pass and how much they're willing to pay, and I don't know, like, great job for for Red Dead Redemption 2 getting a monthly $5 million, like
on a game no one plays.
On a game that came out like what, 3-4 years ago at least. Like, great job. Sure. Well done. Somebody was thinking.
Also, very short segment. There is no conspiracy against Microsoft. Microsoft is not the little nerd getting shoved in the locker, okay? They're a gigantic company. Nobody is conspiring against them. The reviewers, Microsoft tried to hide review codes from people because they were like, we just need a good game, okay? We don't want a whole lot of bad coverage. If the game is bad, just
so wait, is there a conspiracy or is there not a conspiracy?
There is okay. Microsoft as a publisher, there has been in the past where publishers will put some implicit pressure on review sites. Hey, don't go too hard on the game, okay?
Sure.
But we'll make sure you get some review codes, okay? And those are good for a site to get because it gets you early, you get a lot of clicks, great. But if you don't get that review code, you don't get any clicks. And so there's an incentive there to, you don't have to like give it a 10 when you think it's a 7, but like if you think it's a 6, call it a 7, and just talk about what you don't like. Like, and I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. Microsoft did not send out a whole lot of review codes to certain UK sites, but other sites in the US they did send review codes to. And they sent out a lot of review codes to Xbox fanboy sites that were going to make the game look really good. And so they bought themselves like 2-3 days of good coverage, like, hey, the game looks good, and on Metacritic, if somebody looks at Metacritic, it's going to look nice, and that sort of thing.
Right.
And, hey, game looks nice, I'm going to go buy it and try it out or whatever. And then, so it's not a conspiracy. This is kind of a thing that just kind of happens. And it's not like Microsoft is the only one to do it. Sony, they probably do it. They almost definitely do it. They are very aggressive. But in the end, I'm really tired of Microsoft being seen as like this. Everyone hates us. No one would. If Starfield came out as a PS5 exclusive, it'd be a 10 out of 10. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Just shut up. God, just. And then I get people accusing me on Twitter of like, you didn't even play the game. And then when I post 70 hours of gameplay at one point, they're like, you skipped all the good stuff. And I'm like.
You were never going to win that argument. I hope you know, like that was a lost cause to start with.
It's so funny. It's not like people are listening at this point to this hour freaking thing. But yeah,
they might be if we're lucky.
If you did, I want to start a Discord server with everyone where you can come talk and interact. Like, yeah, I want to do this. If you want to join a Discord server, shoot, I probably should have said this at the start. That way people were definitely listening. But yeah, I want to start a Discord server. If you would want to join something like that, put it in the comments because everyone listens to me because I need my external validation.
Because 10Wise is the smartest that you will be listening to. That's a verified fact.
I didn't even have to PayPal you yet.
Don't worry. The bill's coming.
So, yeah, that's pretty much it. But now, if we want to make this one video, let's talk about Starfield. That's how we can end it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to start a Discord server. If any of you are interested in that, I would love to interact with more people in the server and do stuff like that. I want to be accessible. If you want to join something like that, put it in the comments if you would join something like that. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the video. I honestly, after doing this, I kind of want to do this more. I hope people watch these because this is really fun. This is just to talk and throw stuff around a bit.
Yeah.
All right. Bye. Everyone. There's no